here's my podcast world. And right in the first page, you're going to have your shows. Okay, so here you can see I have a list of shows, and you'll probably just have one to begin with. And here's the title of the show. And if you want to do a new episode, it's right here. If you want to view your previous episodes, there's the link. If you want to edit your show, you can delete it. See the public page. So I'll just show you that in this particular case. Here we go. There's a number of themes that you can have. So if you don't like blue and green, no problem. And here's the player, okay, which shows up on every episode. So what happens is my podcast world, every time you make an episode, it makes a page of that episode, and it also puts it on the first page of your podcast site that it creates for you. Okay, and we talked about embedding a second ago. So if you only want to embed an individual episode, then all you have to do is go here, click on embed, click on this code, copy the code, paste it in, and it will just show that single episode. So this is great if you do an interview with an individual who's got their own website. And then you can just say, okay, well, here's the embed code. And if you want, you can have people listen to the interview that I did with you. So it doesn't force all of your shows on that person, just that one. And it's a great way to get your show out there. Okay, if you, yeah, let's go back. One other thing I want to show you. Here we go. You can subscribe to the show. It'll send an email. My podcast world will send an email out to your subscribers every time a new show comes out automatically. And then if you want to subscribe with iTunes, it's right there. And of course, here's the description of the show on the side. And then getting the word out. So this would be on Facebook, Twitter, a whole bunch of places. We'll show you that in a minute. If you need to get your podcast URL, it's right here. And just copy it to the clipboard. And here's where you get the feed. And this is what we need to put into iTunes. Only do it once, but it's imperative that you have it and put it in. And the embed code. And this is the code. If it's different than a single episode, this basically takes your whole show and puts it on the page in a box similar to the other box, but it's got a list of the individual episodes below it so people can listen to it. And it updates automatically every time there's a new episode posted. So basically what that means is you can use my podcast world as your back end, but you don't have to necessarily send people to the public URL at my podcast world. You can send them to a page on your website. And that would be actually more of what I would advise you to do because you really want to drive traffic to your website. Okay. So when you get started, the first thing you're going to have to do is set up your host profile. And as you'll see, in my case, I have quite a few because what I did was I made a host profile for all of my shows where I co-host because I want my name there and I want their name there. So if you do that, boom, you'll see there's a different picture over here. There's different descriptions. You don't really have to put too much in here. But basically, you've got to have an email, and it can be the same as on all of them. And then on the first name, I usually put the name and then the last name is the other name. And then you go down here and you would pick the image that you would want to use. Now, it's a 300 by 300 pixel image, and basically it's what shows up here in any one of these places. And so you want to make sure that you've got it. And I could be wrong on that. It might not show up there. It might be what happens with your show. So if I go to edit show, or in this case, in your case, it would be like do a new show, but I just want to show you this one that's done. So we have our picture here, the author profile. Now I might say, you know what, I'm going to be doing it with Joe from now on, so I'm going to change it to that author profile and it would change. Here we have the category, and here we have the theme. In my case, I have it a deep blue, but Kuji seems kind of cool. And here's the custom URL. So this has to be filled in every time you set up a show. And my recommendation is pick the best keyword that you've got, because we've only got a few thousand people using My Podcast World. There's still lots of good keywords available. And if it's not available, a little thing on the side will come up and tell you it's not available. This is the iTunes number. So when you submit to iTunes, you don't have this in the beginning. Once you've created your podcast, it's kind of like a two-step. You're going to get your podcast created, then you have to um, submit it to iTunes. Apple will send you an email saying thank you very much for your submission. We'll get back to you in a couple of days, and then in a couple of days they'll email you say congratulations, we have accepted your podcast, and it should be live within 24 hours. It gives you a big long URL that has this number at the end of it, so you need to put that in there. And then here's the title. And the way I tend to do the title is whatever my title is, and then I have a pipe, and then I have certain keywords that I want to emphasize. So that my title ends up being long, but these keywords really help me to be found. And then you have the tagline, which is a short description, a longer description, and tags or keywords that you want to, whatever it is that you're talking about. Comments, I would say do not allow them, because there's just a ton of my friends in Russia that keep putting irritating comments in, so I would recommend you don't do that. And then if you want to have an image, which you should have, because this might be the image that shows up in iTunes. It's one of the two places, and I've never been able to remember which. And you just choose your file. Again, it's a 300 by 300 pixel image. And I would recommend that you, I think things should be personal, so I think you should have your picture, but if you have a logo, that's fine. And you should have www something in here that's relatively large. Okay, so www.askscottpaton.com. If you pop that in, it'll take you to my podcast page. It's a redirect. But it could be your regular website or something. And remember that this becomes quite small, as you can see here, or here, for example. And then episodes per page is 10. And we're at this point in time, we've turned off the statistics, but you can use Google Analytics or Clicky. And so I would just go to Google, sign up for their Google Analytics. They'll give you a number, put the number in here, click enabled, and you're good to go. Okay, so once you've set up your host profile, you've set up your your show, then you can set up a new episode. And the way that works, yeah, Anwar asked if I've already created the title without the keywords, can I add them later? Absolutely. So you can always go back and change this. Okay. In fact, I changed the theme, right? But I could say, you know what? I'm not actually talking to that guy anymore on this podcast, so I can remove his name. Click on save. So all this gets changed, and usually once you've updated it, and pinged it, then within a day or two, iTunes has changed it as well. So when we create a new episode, basically, in my case, because I have a lot, I could say, oops, I made a mistake. I didn't want to put this in Internet Marketing one. I wanted to put this in Mind Mastery. Just click on it and change it. Fill out your title, fill out your contents, your description, put in your tags. Is it visible? Oftentimes I'll untick that, okay? And the reason I will is there's sort of this timer, and I get interrupted all the time. So what I do is I will just save it or create it. Okay, so it'll warn you that there's no audio or video attachment, and it's not visible because the visible button is deleted. Okay, but it's saved. There's my title that I did. And I may decide that I don't want it to come out today. I want it to come out later this week, or maybe I want it to come out early next month. So I can set the date. And then when I save that, it says not visible because the visible checkbox is disabled, and it's set to be released 9 days from now. So you know kind of what you need to do. And then I just choose the file for my that I want to upload. I have a podcast folder where I just have all my different podcasts that I'm working on, or that sort of stuff. And then I'll pick it. When I make the audios, I tend to do mostly audios. You can certainly do videos. I tend to number. I have a way of naming the files simply because for me it makes it easier. And I got out of the habit of doing it here, which basically is this is the number of the podcast 118. It's Internet Marketing Unleashed, and Kevin Knoble was my guest. So, and then he was my guest again, and then Mike Rotkin was my guest. So I tend to put in a little bit of information. I used to put a lot more information in. I've gotten away from it, but it really helps. And I'll say, okay, well, what did he talk about? So I'll have a couple keywords in there that just remind me, because I don't know, if 6 months or a year from now, Kevin might call me up and say, you remember that podcast we did? Yeah, I'd really like to have the audio and use it as a bonus or something like that. Would you mind? No, of course not. And then it's easy for me to find it. But if you just have 118 MP3, then you have no idea what that audio is about. And there's going to be times when you're going to want to go back, and you may want to go back and refer to them. So that's what I do. I just select it, click on choose, and it'll put it up there. And as you can see, here's the file listed. Now it's going to go to the default image that I use for either my host profile or my show profile. If I wanted to, I could put a specific image on this one just by choosing an image. Again, it has to be 300 by 300. So if you're doing interviews with lots of different people and you're live with them, you may want to take a picture and then just pop that picture in, use Photoshop or something to make sure it's 300 by 300 pixels, and attach the album art. And then what happens is when the player pops up, instead of it being like my picture, it would be somebody else's picture. Okay. And if you make any changes to the show and you don't ping it, it'll eventually get changed. It just takes a little bit longer. So I like pinging because it just makes everything sort of instantaneous. But if you're not concerned about that, don't worry about it, and it'll get changed. Now, so that's basically how you create an episode. Now, there's one little shortcut I'm going to share with you, and it's called a snippet. And the snippet came about because I hate typing. And a lot of the content in the text of your podcast will be the same from episode to episode to episode. And I used to have a notepad file, and I would just copy and paste. And the programmer said, well, that's boring, do a snippet. And I said, what's a snippet? And he said, this is a snippet. Is that not magical? So basically, it's a bit of content that will be automatically placed in here. Now, what I did is in my snippet is I made this my title as part of the snippet, and I go Control X or Command X, delete it, and then I would just paste it in here. I would put the podcast number at the end, and at the beginning, Scott talks podcasting. Okay, because you want to have a different title right at the beginning because that's what people will see. I'll show you that one in a second. Okay, here's the content that is the same from time to time, and then here are my main keywords, which I put in the tags, and then I might add one or two more in there. And then in the big top here, I would just type in whatever this particular episode was about. So there's a couple paragraphs of unique content, and then there's a couple paragraphs that aren't. And what you put in here, and I would probably change what I've put in, this is a little bit old, is you would want to have your website address. You would want to have a summary of what the podcast is about in general, because everybody is going to see this. You're going to see your latest episode before they see your first one. So if on your first one you had this big long thing about what the podcast was about and you did 100 episodes, nobody would ever see it. So you really want to make sure that everybody sees this content all the time. You don't want to have duplicate content issues with Google, so you want to have a couple paragraphs of new content at the top. And of course, still not visible, and I'll save it just to make sure that I don't get kicked out of here. And you see, of course, it's not going to go visible because I haven't clicked this, and also it's going to be a few days from now. So that's basically the process that you go through to set up your episodes. Now, when you do video, there is a chance that it's going to be slower up. It's going to take longer to upload, and it could get timed out. That's happened to me a few times. One of the things that we're going to be working on is FTP. So basically what it is you use an FTP program. It's a file transfer protocol program. So it'll take a file from your computer, upload it into My Podcast World. And because you use your My Podcast World login information with ftp.mypodcastworld.com, it'll show up in this list, and then you just click on that. So usually FTPing up is a lot easier than uploading the video. However, we just changed servers and we haven't got that functionality working, I don't believe. Could be wrong, but I don't think so. Okay. So if you're doing video, you want to keep them short. One of the strategies too is put the videos on YouTube, take advantage of that traffic, and do a short 30 to 50 to a minute podcast video talking about the YouTube video. And so now you're sending people from one to the other. And that's what we did with Dove a lot of the time. I'm just going to show you that.
Welcome to the Mind Mastery Podcast preview video. And this one, we actually went very deep on this one. We ended up talking about something that most people don't like to talk about, depression, and why people get depressed, and actually how you can come out of it. And guess what? Everyone at some level or another have experienced it, whether it's directly or indirectly, and we went into what you can actually do about it without going on all the drugs. It's a very powerful one for you and for anybody you know who may have been in that state, and a little bit talking about why some people actually hold on to the depression. It's a powerful one. Make sure you go down there and find out more about this show and all the future shows. See you soon, and live with courage.
Okay, so I guess the question that I haven't answered is how do you get a snippet in here? And right up at the top, we have snippets. And we just create a new one, give it a name. Mortgage rates, put in whatever text you want. The cool thing is too, is you can put images in here. There it is. You need to have the image URL from someplace. So I have it here, copy image address. And there you can see, there's the image. So that'll appear in every every podcast, right? So you have your description up above, a little bit of an image, could be your book, could be a picture, could be whatever you want. Click on save, and your snippet is created. Okay, so here's my RSS feed. I've copied it. So basically it's got my keyword marketing.mypodcastworld.com, which is my public URL. RSS2.xml is the XML file, which is basically the feed that changes. Click on continue, and it's going to want to tell you to sign in. This is how they avoid spam and all that good stuff. And it brings up a page. Now the page will probably say it's already been submitted. Yeah, appears the feed has already been submitted. So you know you don't have to do it, right? Which is why you only do it once. But if it hadn't been submitted, you would see your title, you would see your image, you'd see your description, and a few other pieces of information, and you'd be able to check it out before you publish it to make sure that it has everything in there that you want. And what I've noticed is I make spelling mistakes, and I don't catch them until I'm at this point. I read through and I go, oh, spelt the title wrong. So I just cancel at that point, right? And get out of there. And then I go back here, make whatever changes I need to make, edit my show, and I'm good. Now, the other thing that you should do is go to Ping-O-Matic. Okay, and I was here recently. It usually saves the last one. You put your blog or your podcast name in, and then the home page, and then the URL. So as you can see here, here's the podcast URL. Here's the podcast, the RSS feed. So those are the two pieces of information I need in addition to my title. Pop them in here. I check all the common services and the specialized services, audio, weblogs, geolocation, blog share, not RubHub. I don't know why. I guess it could. And then you send the pings. Now, once it's done, this is something that I recommend that you do after every episode. But who wants to, copy and paste all that stuff, even though it's really not that much work? What you do is you just add it to your bookmark. Okay. And then when you go to your bookmarks, I have a folder called pings, and here are all my pings. So my internet marketing Ping-O-Matic is right here. So I just double click it, boom, there it is, done. So in other words, the pinging only takes like 3 clicks, right? Click on your bookmarks, find it, double click on the bookmark, and you're done. So once you've done the pinging, and you should do this before you submit. If you don't, you may find that iTunes hasn't, they said podcast doesn't exist. It says podcast doesn't exist. Go to a ping, go right back, and it will exist. And so so here I am under the editing, and you can see this one is not, the visible checkbox is disabled, and it's going to be released 9 days from now. So it's not live. These other ones are live. Here's the public URL. So I can just copy that link. And what I like to do is just go to Facebook. Okay. And usually it'll pick an image, put a little description, put something at the beginning, what it's about, blah, 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 blah. Obviously, I'm not going to post it. And then it gets posted on your timeline. And in your case, I would also make sure that you post it in the Authentic Leaders, maybe Conscious Living, or some of the other groups that you're in, and that's a way for other people to get access to it. And I think that's a really, in my opinion, it's a really good way to use Facebook. Here we've got, you know, uh, the show, my podcast. Click here to go listen to it. And some of your friends and people in different groups that you're in are going to be wanting to do that. So that's basically how you set up your podcast and how you do your episodes. Pretty pretty basic, pretty simple. I'm going to unmute everybody and see if you have anything you want to say, any questions.
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks.
Thank you, Scott. This is Faisal here.
Yes, thanks.
Awesome.
Hey,
So,
Faisal, this is Lindsay.
hi.
Hey, thanks.
And Anwar, too.
Just the
Hey,
three of you.
Anwar.
Dorothy was on a few minutes ago, but I think she had to go.
Okay, I have a question, Scott.
Okay.
Me and Monica, we just did a video. It's about 1.5 hours long, and we wanted to use it for the podcast too. So, do you suggest that we break it up into what's the maximum minutes I can do, which will be better for posting?
Well, off the top of my head is I would say probably about 10 minutes.
Okay, so 10 minutes, and then I can make whatever 10 or 9 or whatever episodes.
Yeah, that
Okay.
I think that would be pretty good because that's an awful lot of content. One of the things you have to be concerned about is if someone's going to be listening or watching it on their iPhone, you don't want to send like 3 gigs to their iPhone and fill it up.
Okay.
Because what happens is it slows down the device, and then they complain to Apple, and then Apple's like upset.
Okay.
And you're not really giving good customer service too, because if you think about downloading it onto a computer and then onto the iPhone, or downloading it onto the iPhone directly, just imagine downloading 500 megs onto your phone.
Yeah, it's
No,
pain.
you're not going to do that, right?
No.
So that's one of the things that you have to be, which is why I would, in your case, I would recommend, breaking it down into maybe 15-minute chunks, putting it on YouTube, and then doing some short, maybe a 5-minute talk where you say, and that's your podcast, where you say, Monica and I talked about go to YouTube, and or go here, or however you want to say it, and watch this video, right?
So how do I give them the YouTube URL? Because it's kind of weird, like they have lots of alphabets and numbers. So if there are 10 episodes, so if I'm doing 30-second.
I think what I would do, that's a great question, by the way, and it had me stumped for a second. I think what I would do is I would have my own blog.
Yeah.
Like I have AskScottPaton.com or MeetScottPaton.com or something like that. And I would say, you know what, go to MeetScottPaton.com/YouTube, and you'll see the video there. And of course, that's just a post on my blog. And what I do is I go to YouTube and I get the embed code from YouTube,
Yeah.
and pop it in, right? So just in
Okay.
case.
So basically on my blog, it will say podcast 1, 2, 3, whatever, and it will have all the codes from YouTube. And then whenever I do my 30-second podcast, I will say, go to my blog, and then watch my podcast 1 or whatever. And then
right, and give them a name. Don't call them podcast 1, because that's really boring.
Okay.
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 So and let me just show you why too. Like let's look at this. Let's look at this person's podcast, because that's another great point. Professor John Patrick Monahan, Humiliation Destruction. Professor Jesse Valona Sr., Speech. Dr. Marie. Okay, so if I'm looking for Neil, there's the one, right? Now imagine this. What can I put in front? Okay. Imagine that, and that says podcast 1.
Mm-hmm.
because that's what can happen, right? So you got podcast 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, what are they talking about, right?
Okay.
So, and I've seen that where this was actually smaller for some reason. Maybe it was just because the size of the window. But it just said podcast 1, podcast 2, podcast 3. So it was like the guy came and told me to listen to him talk about something, and I can't tell which one it is. So you want to make sure that your title of your episodes is descriptive at the beginning. At the
Okay.
end, you can have, podcast, you know, 1 or 2 back here, like nobody can see it, right?
Okay. Okay. Great. Thank you for
Yeah.
that.
So here we are on YouTube. Here is the embed code for this episode.
Yeah.
So I just take that, copy it, paste it into my blog, and this will show up.
Okay.
Okay. So it's, very easy to do.
Now, is it better to do both audio and video separately, or what would you recommend? Just do video
I would
podcast?
recommend I would recommend if you can do an audio show and a video show to do both. Because if
Okay.
I'm driving to and from work and you've got 20 to 30-minute audios, I'm
Mm-hmm.
cool. Like I'm driving to work, I'm listening. But if you've got 20 to 30-minute videos and I love you and I got to listen to you, then there's a temptation to watch, which is not a good idea in the car.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
I have a question to addition to that, if Faisal, if you're done.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. My question is, okay, I use iMovie and a GarageBand,
Mm-hmm.
and I was trying to strip out the audio. And I have another tool on my PC that I can strip the audio. However, maybe instead of having to do that, do you have a recommendation?
You'd
So I've got the video.
use GarageBand to strip it out.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah.
Is it difficult?
It was the first time because I didn't know how to do it. I did it
Yeah.
about a week ago, actually, because I
What about for PC?
well, I think I don't know, to be quite
Oh,
honest.
I could give you that answer, Faisal.
Okay.
Um,
Thank you, Edward.
there's a tool called it's free,
Mhm.
and the tool is called, just a second, I'm just pulling it up right now. Okay, I'll send it to you. I'll email it to you, but it's
Okay, that's
called
fine. Yeah.
AVI Mix, and I've used it to strip out audio when I've done stuff.
Okay, great. Thanks.
I have a
I'll send it to
when
everyone.
you finished, I would like to ask a question after you finish, Anva.
Sure. No, that's all I wanted to know is how to strip out the audio. So,
Okay, Lindsay.
Okay, I've been planning and organizing to do a set of podcasts. These different women talking about their divorce experience, and it has different. I've sort of done a format with some different sections, but the whole thing is it's kind of me asking them questions and them answering, but it lasts about 45 minutes, 50 minutes for each person. So, and I've got about 7 ladies. So,
Cool.
which I'm interviewing at the moment just to hear the stories, and then I wanted to make it to call it the inspirational women's midlife divorce podcast, but I've got that's clearly too long. So I was thinking about it in terms of, you have the summits with different people speaking and being interviewed. I was kind of thinking about it in that kind of term.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you do that then for a podcast?
How do you have a
You have
shorter title?
well, I'm just thinking. I mean, while having that, I would have to have lots of different podcasts. Is that what you're saying? And just I couldn't link it under one; it'd be just too long. So
No. Okay, so you have a show, right?
yeah,
Okay, so you have your show, and in your show you have episodes, right? So
okay.
pretend this is your conversation with the first lady, and this is your
Mm-hmm.
conversation with the second one, this is with the third, this is with the fourth, this is with the fifth. So it could be the title that you said, and then it could be, Lindsay and Susie talk children and divorce. Lindsay and Jane talk something else, or how to deal with anger uh, with Susie.
Yeah,
As
I mean, for this particular divorce series of had sort of planned to do is just different people talking about their individual experience of what
mm-hmm.
happened. So basically how the format I've set up is starting what was the dream, the happily
Yeah.
ever after dream, then what went wrong,
Yeah.
and then when did you kind of enter the valley of despair, which ended the marriage, and then what was the emergence, what were the steps of the emergence, where are you today, what was the biggest thing you learned from it, and what would be one thing you'd want to say to the listener who may be in the valley of despair in this moment.
Okay.
And that's how it kind of ends.
Right.
And how
So,
can they contact you? So it's got a format,
yep.
and I try to keep 5 minutes for each part,
Yeah.
but it still goes long
Yeah.
for each
One of the
part.
things I would recommend that you do is break it in half. So you have
Okay,
part one, part two, because I think 20 minutes to half an hour is a good length.
okay,
If you're getting into 40, 45 minutes, then I think it's better to have one that's 20 minutes, one that's 15 minutes, or one that's 25 minutes, one that's 15. I don't know. It depends on where it naturally breaks, right? You can't just stop her mid-sentence.
hmm,
But I would just say, whoever the person is, part one, whoever the person is, part two, and post them that way. And then
okay,
at the end of part one, I would just make a little clip and say, this is the end of part one. Join us next time for part two.
yep,
And then whatever sort of ending that you want to put on it, right? Or you could even say, if you want to know more about Sue, then go to www.sue.com for more information. I mean, you can just add that in in the split between part one and part two, so that she gets uh,
yeah,
some publicity or promotion both times. But that's how I would do it. And I think what you're talking about doing is perfect for podcasting. It would make a really, really good show.
great. I mean, I don't want to end it on a low. So, for example, the first part is about the dream and then where it goes wrong. And I wanted to have, I mean, I don't want
So
to leave them
that's
in
where
a
you can
downer.
that's what you can do what they do on TV. Next week on Lost,
Yeah, find out what happens.
find out what happened. And you see, because you've done the whole thing, right? And you can just say,
Yeah,
next week Susie will talk about how she got over her depression and how she did this and how she did that in order to become, a really happy mom of two just absolutely brilliant kids, or whatever the result was, right?
okay. So
So
you wouldn't, like, if you were selling it, sorry to interrupt, Scott, if you were like selling it eventually, you would have it all, the whole series on, they could buy the whole series if that ever, I mean, I don't know whether this will be like that, but otherwise I mean, is this something we're doing with the podcast where it's free and we're just putting it out? I
the
mean, I was
podcasts
thinking,
are free. So
okay,
if you wanted to do a series of, say, 7 CDs that were an hour each with your interviews with those 7 women,
mm-hmm,
what I would recommend that you do is pick out some of the highlights and tease.
mm-hmm,
Okay, so uh, I suppose here are 3 or 4 clips from my interview with Susie, and yeah, and you could do it like I mean, they do it on radio all the time, right? It's like um, I was really excited. I got together with Susie, and she had gone from this to this to that to this, and she explained the whole process of how she went from such desperate, almost out on the street, position to being a multimillionaire and winning an Oscar. And so, and then you can put a couple clips in, of her talking about different things from the CD, but they're not answering the how question, right? They're answering the
mm-hmm.
why you need to listen question, why you need to buy question. And then at the end, you can get this by going to lindsaywalker.com/CD, and you'll see all the CDs there. You can download them or buy them singly or as a set, or however, whatever the end
Mm-hmm.
result is that you're doing, right? And so this then becomes part of the promotion of the product. You could still have them on your website for sale. I guess it all depends on the purpose of what you're creating, right? Whether you want new clients, whether you want product sales, what it is that you want,
Yeah.
and then just
I,
work it that way.
right. Because yes, I wasn't, you're doing the podcast. So usually the podcasts are always free.
Yeah.
I didn't know that they were always free. I thought podcasts could also be sold, but podcasts are always free, right?
Yeah. One of our plans is to have like a membership podcast system. It's just that you cannot put them through iTunes. So you always want to have something free because then they go
Yeah.
through iTunes and then you've got all the 200 million people that have iPods and iPhones and
Hmm.
iPads able to access and Android devices able to access it. And then, but then from there you get them to come to your site to buy.
Okay, so basically what you're saying, and especially also perhaps, just trying this out and things, because it's a first time, is to do this idea, put it free, and to do it in a way that is just advertising me and what I'm doing and these other ladies.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Okay. And for me, I mean, these other ladies, they're not. I mean, they have come out of the sort of the dark hole, but they're not like in an like doing like multimillionaire and things. These are just like regular, ordinary people who have been through a difficult time, but
Mm-hmm.
coming out, and they're still on the journey and they're still moving forward. But it's just their different stories. So it basically was because I haven't found people who are in the position where they really I mean, done amazing, amazing, amazing. I mean, a couple of them are doing quite well, but otherwise, I mean, I've got some, a couple, a few with quite intense stories, and I've got actually, interesting enough, different nationalities.
Oh,
So
good.
I've got. I'm not sure whether I use one lady from India, but I've got India, Australia, Dubai, England,
Cool.
various different nationalities with their different accents. So that's kind of cool. So yeah, so as I said, just in the beginning process of doing that.
So if I can make a suggestion, Lindsay,
Yeah,
when you're talking to somebody whose English is their second language,
yeah.
what I would recommend is you ask the question, they answer in English, and then once they're done, I would ask them to answer in their native tongue. And I would put
Yeah, yeah.
a CD up in Hindu or Hindi, I mean, or in French or in whatever, right? Why not?
Mhm.
I think that would be awesome. Whenever um, I did testimonials for a number of Dove's events, and Sophia and Ricardo from Portugal were there, and they would struggle mightily to communicate what they wanted to say in English. And then when they were done, I would say it in Portuguese.
Mhm.
And they looked at me like I was insane, right? But I thought, no, just say it in Portuguese. And then it was amazing the transformation because all of a sudden they weren't struggling to figure out what
Mhm.
word they should use. And, the confidence and the stance and everything else. But I mean, why not put it out in Portuguese? You know? So
But
I
how would that
post.
affect the length, though? The length of it,
Well,
if
what
it
I would
goes up?
do is I would edit the audio so that the two languages were separate CDs.
Huh.
Here I am talking to Susie. Here's the English version. Here's the French version.
But you're not asking the questions in that language.
No. So then you have to decide if you care or if you want to get somebody to listen to the question and translate it into, or even them. How do you say this question in French or
Mhm.
German or whatever? And then have them ask, you know, they can ask the
Yeah.
question and then answer the question, right? It'd be kind
Yeah.
of strange, it might be a bit strange, or you just get somebody else to do it, right? But I mean,
Yeah.
why not sell something in another language?
Mhm.
I think,
Yeah, that's awesome because then all of a sudden you offer something that no one else does.
absolutely. Like they say that the people that are putting stuff out in Spanish in the States are making a killing because nobody does,
Mhm.
right? And it's a huge market. So here's how to deal with, marital problems in Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, interesting. Okay, thanks. Thanks, Scott.
okay, so there was a question about getting the audio out here. This is a video that I put into
Mm-hmm.
GarageBand.
Yes.
Okay, and so what I did in GarageBand is I had made my podcast uh, file. I had a little bit of music at the beginning. I actually have a little bit of music at the end, and then all I do is I save it, and then I just hit delete on the talking
Mm,
and
right.
put the new talking in. So basically, it's very, very quick for me in GarageBand because all I do is import the audio, stick it in this track, and make sure the beginning, I'll make sure that this isn't too fuzzy or whatever. I'll get rid of, like, I think it's T, no, Control T, yeah, and then I'll just sort of delete it or something, right? And then I do the same at the end, and then I just move these as I need to. But so what happens here is you just select the movie track, and then you go delete track. This track contains the movie. Are you sure you want to delete it? Delete it. Boom. There I go. So
Right.
now,
Now,
go ahead.
oh, sorry. Yeah, so I understand that. I'm just curious. Well, most of mine, I created the actual video was from like recording it off my HD camera. So when I'm in iMovie, I know that I was trying to separate the tracks. I couldn't. So if I brought the import from brought the thing from iMovie, which is how, that's I guess where's my question is how do I separate it at that point?
In iMovie,
Oh, sorry. Okay, say for I have the raw file, the raw video
right?
file. Um,
So it's like it's some weird extension, right?
no, it's from like using a standard video camera.
Yeah. So, but it's not like an MOV or an M4V.
I think it's an M4. No, actually, I don't remember, but I think actually I don't have the raw video file. I just have the iMovie file, whatever it's been converted
Yeah.
to.
So I guess I don't know. What I would say is
Oh, okay,
if,
sure.
oh, I see. So use iMovie to bring it into your Mac,
Yes.
and then I would export it as something,
Yeah.
as small file as possible because you don't need the
Hmm.
video. And then I would
Right.
just drag it into here, and then I just
Oh.
delete the movie track.
Oh, okay. So you can actually once you've okay. So all right, I'll give that a try while we're
Yeah, because I
talking.
just put an MOV file in here, I think, or was it an
Hmm.
what was it? M4V file. But I know an
Oh, okay.
MOV
Right.
and they
Yes,
all
that I think. Yeah. Okay.
all
Yeah, I
those
believe
work.
mine's an M4V.
Yeah, so you just drag it in here, then you'll
Okay.
see movie sound, movie um, yeah, can't. It'll have the movie track and you just delete it. It'll ask if you want to. Yep, and then you just export. Oops. I think you share, export song to disk, and you're good. All right. So any last questions before we close her off?
Yes, there was one question, or there is.
Okay.
I know you were talking about that you're going to make an app for Anwar as a bonus.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that app do actually?
That's a great question.
Thank you.
And how can I answer that question?
But
The
like, what is it like? Is it, let's say if I'm using Android and I'll download this app, so what will it do?
Let me show you an example. This is
Okay.
one I just finished. And this fellow, and the reason I actually wanted to show it to you was this fellow teaches speakers how to cruise for free. Okay.
Okay.
And I thought, I'm actually meeting him tomorrow because I'm showing him his app. And I'm thinking I
Okay.
might talk to him and to Dove and see if I can't get him to do a webinar for you guys because that
Hmm.
would be a great way
Oh yeah.
to use your speaking abilities, right?
Hmm.
Exactly.
So
Absolutely.
this is the app that I created for him. Okay, so when it loads up, this is the splash screen that shows up, and then we have this page, and there's cruise
Okay.
free. And the thing with Apple is they want good content for their customers and their followers. So they don't want like a blatant sales page. Okay, so I've made a bunch of sections: cruising free, cruise lines, books on it, videos on it, podcasts on it. Send your photos and follow. And then along the bottom we have Twitter, we have news, we have contact. Okay, so
Mhm.
we go on the cruise free, and what this does, just take a second, I guess. Here are all the YouTube videos that he had talking about cruising for free. Not all of them, but some, right? And
Mhm.
it, for some reason, Safari and Flash have an issue, or Safari and YouTube. So this actually will be an image instead of just a black box on your phone.
Yeah.
And then the cruise lines, well, these are the main cruise lines that he works with to set you up to talk for free on the cruises. And it's just information. And then here's books that are in the iBook store. Come on. Okay, so if you want to know about cruising the Caribbean or whatever, you could buy these from the app, right? And cruise videos are, oh, sorry. Sometimes it'll show on the simulation, sometimes it won't. But this is basically a page of YouTube videos of people that are um, so excited about cruising. There's students and that sort of testimonials. And then cruising podcasts. So here are different podcasts that are free that they can listen. So basically, I have audio, video, text, multimedia, because that's really what an iPhone is. And then send the photos is, again, it won't show on the simulator because it's native app programming. But basically, you take a picture when you're on your cruise, and then you put it on Facebook or you email it to friends. So it's a great way
Okay.
of, yeah, here I am cruising for free in the Caribbean, blah, 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 right? And then, of
Mhm.
course, he's got a Facebook page, a Twitter page, YouTube page, LinkedIn page, push notifications. So once people get this, he can say, you know what, I'm doing a webinar on uh, how to cruise for free. Tomorrow, go here to sign up for it. And that can actually be a push notification that will appear on his phone.
Okay.
And then we got Twitter. And then here, the only other one I really want to show you is this is you put your name in, your phone number, email address, and whatever your question is, and you send it to him. So what the app becomes is a way to be on people's phones, really, and that's what
But now, how people know that you have this app? Like, like
you
people
would.
don't know.
Um, well, basically, that's all part of the promotion, right?
Okay.
You can do mobile ads that will. You can do um, app that wasn't right. You can do app review sites, get people to review your apps, that sort of thing. Get the word out,
Okay.
put it on Facebook, right? Hey, I've got this great app, you know. And um, one of the um, did I put it on this? One of the things that happens is people just actually, you know what? That's a really good question. I just realized something I had never thought of before, so thank you. Have you ever heard of a QR code?
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
So I'm going to put a QR code here, like it'll just say QR code. And then when you click on it, it'll open up the QR code. And then I can have it say, you know what, here's this really cool app I've got. And then you can
Mhm.
just scan the QR code, open it up, and download it yourself,
Oh, okay.
right?
That's
So
cool.
And when we created, oh, sorry,
go ahead.
when we created, are we just doing an Apple or Android as well, or how we're going to just kind of adding on into Faisal's question?
Yeah, all I'm doing for you is an iPhone one. I can
Okay,
do an
okay, sure.
Android one for you too, and I can give you
Yes,
a cost on that.
sure.
It
No,
won't.
I'm just curious. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think you should be doing both for
Yes.
sure, because you've got that's pretty much 100% of the smartphones. But the idea
Yes.
behind the app is to first of all, it's to get you into the mobile marketplace. So it's kind of like
Mm-hmm.
I think, like, I remember when I would ask somebody, do you have a website? No. Well, I build websites. And the question they always ask me is, why do I need a website? Now, I don't think anybody asks that question anymore. They've moved
They
on
ask
to,
what's the address.
that's right. And you don't have a website, you're crazy, right? Or you're not in business. And I think that in 3 or 4 years, it's what's your app? Where do I get your app? Or give me the QR code for your app or something like that. Because you, I, why would I have or you have to have a mobile website. But I think the app is way more fun, right? And so what that does is it puts you on the phone, desktop of the phone or the screen of the phone in your top of mind. So all of a sudden, I'll click on this and I'll just open it up and see what Anwar's up to now, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
what we do in these, like in the app that we're building for Anwar, it's basically the Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn push notification plus the news and podcasting. So, and I think I said YouTube. So basically, it's all the areas that you have information online in one place. So that you could just imagine getting out your smartphone and trying to find his Facebook page, and then trying to find his podcast, and then trying to find his Twitter, and then trying to find his blog, and then, I mean, it's just like, forget it. I'm not typing
Okay,
all those letters on my phone. But if I
I
can just
see.
tap one thing and then, oh, I tapped it, and now I can see like Seth Godin. Do a search on him and download his app. All it is like a blog and a Twitter thing, and he can
Mm-hmm.
do that and get away with it because he's Seth Godin and he's a best-selling author, and Apple's happy to have his app on there. If you're like, Anwar and I, and you're not super super famous yet, then you have to have a lot more kind of bells and whistles in the app to make it acceptable, because Apple actually looks at every app and approves it as a person approves it, whereas Google, they just approve it. And
Mm-hmm.
and the problem with that is a lot of the apps on Google have spyware and malware and viruses and all sorts of stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not going to last long. So the simulator here just shows you that it's going to pull the title and a short description of each item on this person's blog. Okay, so, and
Okay.
then you just click on that, you go through to the full blog post if you wanted to. So basically, what we're saying is we need to have I'm saying we need to have a multimedia app that you can have people download, so that from there they can get all of your information. They can listen to you, they can watch you, they can read you, they can be kept up to date. Most apps don't get open more than once or twice. Why? Because I've seen it. I don't have to go back. But if Anwar's podcasting every week and he's blogging every couple of days and he's tweeting every day and he's on Facebook and all that sort of stuff, then I have a reason to, because he's my leader of my tribe, I want to know what he's thinking, what's going on. I have a quick and easy way to do it. It's tap, tap, tap. I got the information, and no typing, no nothing. So that's the whole idea behind behind what I call the iMe app. It's basically everything about me in one place, nice and easy. You can connect with me on Facebook if you like Facebook. If you're a LinkedIn person, you can connect with me there. You can follow my tweets, and it's easy. So
And would it also give a notification? Let's say I have Anwar's app on my Android, and every time he has a new podcast or a Facebook comment, would it pop up on my phone that okay, Anwar has a new comment or whatever?
yeah, that's called a push notification. And
Oh, okay,
so,
okay.
yeah, and so we would set it up so that it would have push notifications, and then it's like, oh, cool, I can go listen to his latest radio show, right?
Oh, okay, okay.
And yeah, so, and there might be a special event or whatever the sort of news is. So yeah, it just keeps them even more front of mind, right? Because everybody looks at those notifications when they come in.
So basically, it's another weapon. Let's say if I have a business card, I can put it on my business card, okay,
Yep,
Anwar.app or whatever the name is,
yep,
and I give that business card to whoever then they see, oh, okay, there's an app and they can download, and now they're getting everything from me, and they don't need to know my Facebook or Twitter accounts because it's already in the app.
That's correct.
Okay,
It's
perfect.
absolutely. In fact, what I would do is I would do a QR code and put it on the back of your business card, and just
Oh yeah.
and underneath it say, get my app, and there it is, and just
Okay.
it becomes really, really easy.
Okay, that's great. Good. Good. Okay. Cool.
I guess where I'm going with this is, right now I'm doing Security Insight and kind of the name of what I'm doing. However, I'd like to actually have it broader because my blog is not named Security Insight, it's my name.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just curious, I see this one, for example, for this gentleman, it says cruise free. Do I have to have, and Dov Baron, he's been doing this stuff for a long time, so he's got a lot of content. Me, I'm just kind of in the beginning of my content, if you will. Now, you said Apple's going to scrutinize the content, make sure probably I'm a regular poster and all that sort of stuff. It's not just something going to be a waste of time. So where I'm going with this is what's kind of the minimum requirement, or do you think that you see is going to be required for me to actually be successful
Well,
in
that's an
Apple
interesting
approving?
question on a lot of levels. I in order to have an app approved, okay, I'll
Hmm.
take that as what you mean by successful.
Yes,
I
yes.
would say that it's not hard. I would say you'd need like 5 podcast episodes, probably about
Hmm.
10 or 15 tweets, and probably 7 or so blog posts. So
Oh,
basically,
okay.
so
Oh, it's pretty
what when
minimal
they
then.
look at this page, they're not going to, I
Hmm.
mean, they don't have time to be anal about it, okay? But
Right.
they're going to
Oh,
look,
okay.
and if they look and there's like one post, they're going to say, I don't know, right? But if they
Yeah.
look at it and they see that there's 6 or 7 or 8 posts, then
Hmm.
fine, because at least you
Oh,
look at
okay.
it, it looks good, right?
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
all, it's not, they're not going to judge you in terms of, well, I don't think the writing is very good, or I don't like this
Oh, okay.
topic. They might, right? I mean, I had one
That.
person, and I think that's why they just didn't like the topic, so
Hmm.
they didn't approve it, right? So we had to fiddle
Right.
around with it. But
Hmm.
and I would never, would like, if you work with me to get an app made, I'll
Hmm.
never ever let you put out something that I don't think would be approved. So I mean, it would be part of the
Right.
discussion that we would have. So I don't
Oh,
think you
okay.
need
Good.
to worry about that.
All right.
And
Yeah.
and I can help with what I do is help people with all aspects of this stuff, so that
Hmm.
it's because having the Facebook fan page, or whichever page you have in the app, is good, but having the fan page itself is a benefit.
Okay.
So all of these things that we have in the app are a benefit to you in reaching
Hmm.
people in different ways. And
Right.
right, because I mean, if you talk to any internet marketing or social media marketing type person, they'll say, "Oh, you need to do a whole bunch of stuff on Facebook, and you need to tweet, and you need to do blah 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 blah. You need to do all this stuff," and that's true. And all I'm saying is if we're moving from laptops and desktops to
Hmm.
iPad minis and iPhones and stuff like that, how do we make it easy for our customer or our
Yes.
follower, right? Well, tap, 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 not type, type, type is my answer.
Yes. Yes.
So then that's what this is all about, is taking all the things that you should be doing
Yes.
and making it easy for people that are on smartphones to be able to access it.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
That's excellent. So yeah, that means I'm pretty much covered. Okay.
Yeah.
If you're suggesting, and that's good information. I'm glad we're working together to get that information, so that I understand what it is I require on my end to make sure that this is successful.
Right. Good.
Perfect. Thank you.
So there's only 3 of you on here, so I'm going to do something similar to what I did to Anwar.
Ooh.
Not as
Woohoo!
good because he was the only one to get his podcast up in time.
Oh,
Uh,
come on.
but typically, the type of apps that I make are $1,500, and so
Okay.
I'm going to make, if you want an app like the one I'm going to make for Anwar, and as we've kind of discussed, and of course these things are always customized, so it's not like It's not like, oh, I'd really like to have Tumblr in here, and I go, no. I mean, we sit down and we map out the whole thing and decide what we all agree is best for what goes into the app. And it's not rocket science, right? And it's not like there's anything probably that you haven't heard of, because we have gone through just about everything on this Cruise Free, which is, the Facebook and the YouTube and the podcasting and all the rest of it. And so what I'll do for all of you is, if you want to get an app like that, it's and
Oh, that's great.
yeah,
Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Scott.
yeah, and
Cool.
that would be for an iPhone one. It would be if you wanted the Android one, and that would be the offer to Anwar. If he wants an Android one, I'll do it for
Absolutely.
you. Okay, cool.
Thank you.
So there you go.
Okay, so 14th,
So the offer is good until Valentine's Day midnight.
All right, here we go.
So what would that mean? I mean, I would have to begin with you by that time. Is that
Yes.
right? Or it had
Yeah,
to
you'd
be...
have to contact me before Valentine's midnight. And
Okay.
I can tell you right now that from 9 p.m. on Valentine's Day on, you won't be able to.
From
I fully intend to be with my honey then, and so
so not
she
by
would
midnight.
shoot me if I was taking. Excuse me, I got to talk to Lindsay. We're talking about apps. 10 o'clock on Valentine's Day. She'd be.
Of course.
I would be
Okay.
like.
So I will say, how about February the 13th?
I hope it's a Friday.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Scott. Thank you, Scott, and thanks again for tonight.
Oh, my pleasure.
Thank you, Scott. That was great. Lots of questions answered.
Good.
And the fog has been lifted
Good.
over the podcast, so I'm relaxed a bit now. So it's not
Good.
that hard to do it. So thank you.
Good. Yeah. So just.
And if we have any more questions or anything, best prefer.
Yeah, just send an email to me or contact me through Facebook, and
Okay.
I'll help you with whatever I need to help you with.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. That's pretty amazing. So I really appreciate that offer. That's amazing.
Well, thanks. Yeah. So just send me a message in Facebook or email me, scott@patonmail.com. And we'll just get started.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you once again, Scott.
Thanks, Scott.